The Chronicles of Narnia are classic children's novels. 120 million copies sold over the 7 books in the series, and they have taken the rightful place in the history of fantasy, with many people seeing Narnia as a gateway to more mature and complex novels within the genre. They are a wonderful place to begin your journey, even if you're beyond the age of the 7 friends of Narnia. Of course, having sold that many copies and becoming a household name, it's no surprise that Hollywood and others have tried their hand at adapting Narnia. The most prominent would be the late 80s BBC TV series, which covered the first 4 published books. More on that read in order later. And of course, the free Walden Media films from the early 2000s. And do you notice a trend here? The BBC covered the first 4 books, Walden Media the first 3. They never finished the 7-part series, and in fact, no one studio has held the rights to the entire Chronicles of Narnia at one point, until what must be about 7 years ago, when Netflix bought the rights to all 7 Narnia books. And since then, it's been a long journey. Years of nothing more than whispers. There was so much uncertainty on whether these adaptations would ever see the light of day, until director Greta Gerwig, who helmed a little-known movie named Barbie, came on board for at least 2 films. And now we know the first Narnia movie from Netflix will release in IMAX on Thanksgiving 2026, before premiering on the streaming service in December of the same year. Personally, I would prefer a larger theatrical release, and for it to stay exclusively in cinemas for several months before dropping on Netflix. But in today's age, the time between theatrical and home release is becoming shorter and shorter every single year. And I get it, Netflix have their business model. They want to get as many eyes on their streaming as possible. But this is also the same company that just gave the Russo brothers $320 million to make The Electric State. And even if a film is watched by so many millions, I just don't see how it can justify having a budget of that size. However, Narnia is a very strong brand with a passionate fan base and is very well known to the general public, many of whom grew up with past adaptations. And I think if Netflix can keep the budget closer to $200 million, produce a well-made and faithful film, then it more than warrants a theatrical run. And it's a no-brainer releasing Narnia around Thanksgiving and keeping it in cinemas over Christmas because of the strong Christian themes present in the books, which of course many believe Netflix will dilute. But here's hoping that is not the case, because those themes are central to the story. So yes, the first Greta Gerwig film releases Thanksgiving next year, and I believe she's only signed on officially for 1 film at the moment, but a second is being discussed. And I think it's highly unlikely she's going to be around to direct all 7 films if they make it that far. It's going to take at least a decade to finish this, but every indication leads us to believe Greta Gerwig's first film will be The Magicians Nephew, which is the first book chronologically, but the 6th book released, which once again brings up the infamous read in order debate, whether you should read the books chronologically or in the order of release. Personally, I read release the very first time, but on rereads, I recommend the chronological. But like I say, it's up to you. But if you're doing it by release, you read The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, followed by Prince Caspian, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, The Silver Chair, The Horse and His Boy, The Magician's Nephew, and finally The Last Battle. Whereas if you're doing it chronologically, you read The Magician's Nephew, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, The Horse and His Boy, Prince Caspian, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, The Silver Chair, and then The Last Battle. And as these films are not only aimed at book readers but also the general public, chronological order makes the most sense. We don't need any confusing time jumps and time skips. Keep it simple. And most viewers won't know much about The Magician's Nephew, as none of the mainstream adaptations have touched upon it. And I believe starting with Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe would be very repetitive, as that has been adapted the most, and it is the most popular book. Let's start with something new, and it's clear the second film will have to be Wardrobe, if the first film is Magician's Nephew. It's possible Gerwig's first 2 films will be treated almost as a part 1 and part 2, as Magician's Nephew focuses on the creation of Narnia and introduces us to characters such as Aslan and Jadis the White Witch. And as we all know, those characters are the 2 forces present during The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Filming is meant to begin in July 2025 and wraps at the end of the year, with the UK being the production hub, which I'm very grateful for. I'm pleased many major productions have chosen to film over here, and Narnia is British, so that's another win. It's like Harry Potter, it's meant to be filmed here. No cast announcements yet, but with how much money Netflix throw at their films, and by choosing an Oscar-nominated director who just made the highest grossing film of 2023, it's pretty clear Narnia will have a sizable budget. And it'll need that money with the creation of Narnia itself, and of course the CGI creatures. But it also seems like this Narnia film and Gerwig's involvement has a lot of pull, as many actors have thrown their hat in the ring for a chance to star in the magical land. Saoirse Ronan, a consistent collaborator of Gerwig, wants in. Star Wars' Daisy Ridley is another one, but she believes the role has already been cast. And obviously the female lead for The Magician's Nephew is Jadis the White Witch. Most people assume the role of Jadis will go to Ronan, but for me, I've always advocated for Gwendoline Christie, who has the look, the height and the screen presence, and the acting chops. But it seems like Netflix are also interested in singer Charlie XCX as Jadis, which feels very much out of left field, but I'm going to keep an open mind for this. And as of right now, nothing is official. Another argument in favour of it being Magician's Nephew is the casting call for a young boy and a young girl, which have to be Diggory and Polly. And there's also a report that Daniel Craig, the most recent James Bond, has been offered a role. And if we're doing Magician's Nephew, then he would have to be either Uncle Andrew or Aslan. But I would go for Uncle Andrew. I feel he's more suited for that role. And when it comes to Aslan, you want to get someone you know will be down for all 7 movies. But right now, it's all full of whispers, rumours and reports. But with only a couple months left before production starts, we will hear very, very soon. And of course, I will make a video breaking down all the casting. But for now, I want you guys to post your thoughts on Narnia on Netflix. Which book will they cover first? And who would you cast as Aslan, as Jadis, as Uncle Andrew? The child actors are more than likely going to be unknowns, with perhaps 1 or 2 of them appearing in something you've seen before. And what about Barbie director Greta Gerwig, who is clearly a fan of the books as she grew up reading them, but no doubt many fear what might become of Narnia being directed by the woman who made Barbie. But my concern is when she uses phrases such as rock and roll to describe her Narnia adaptation, and Amy Pascal, who's producing it, that was the person behind all the Spider-Man-less Spider-Verse movies, like Venom and Craven and Morbius. And she describes it as a very new take on Narnia, which of course is very, very concerning. Just wait for official reports. But Netflix, do not screw this up. Make Narnia, Narnia. Don't follow other fantasy disasters such as The Witcher, Rings of Power, and countless others that didn't care about the source material. Do it right, respect the fans and the books, and everybody will be happy, right? Anyways guys, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.